Right, so that was the intro to Nothing Else Matters by Metallica. I had a request to go over this one in the last video I posted where I talked about an efficient way to go about learning a new song or any kind of new material you're looking at. But yeah, I've got a couple of sheets that will be available for download in the description box. There'll be a link to a Google Drive, and it'll just have the tab as well as that a chord diagram for some of the chords you need to play in this. But yeah, let's get right into it. So, First of all, you'll see on this sheet that there are some red rectangles, okay, little highlighted sections, and as well as that, some lighter blue ones. Now, these are going to highlight little phrases or little parts that I think you should practice on your own. And then the little like blue squares within that, those are the trickier parts that you might need to practice even more isolated on its own and then integrate back into the bigger phrase or the red square rectangle. So that's how it's going to work, and we'll just work through it and I'll explain it as we go. So the first phrase to begin this song is a little finger picking sequence, okay, and we're going to be going between the E string, the G, the B, and the high E. Now, in terms of what fingers you're going to use to pick these strings, you want to use your thumb to play the low E, then you want to use your first finger to play the G, then your middle finger to play the B, and third finger to play the high E. Now, you're probably going to want to just use one finger to play those top three strings, but try be disciplined about it. Just try catch yourself out and make sure you're using the right fingers. And we just go up and down those strings using those fingers. So we go thumb on the E string, first finger on the G, middle finger on the B, third finger on the high E, then we go back down, middle finger on the B, first finger on the G, right? So that's the first little box, and I would suggest you just go through and just get really comfortable with that picking pattern for a while. Don't worry about how many times it's actually played in the song, just get used to going back and forth. Right? Starting slow. Just making sure you're using the right fingers, playing the right strings, obviously. Just over and over like that. And that takes care of the first, 3-4-ish bars of the song. So get used to that finger picking pattern. Now, the next part, so we're going to get into some actual fretted notes. So you want to use your third finger to play the 7th fret on the high E. Cool? So we're going to play that, and again, we're picking it with our third finger on our right hand. Right? And then we play that note again with our third finger, but we also add in our thumb playing the low E. Okay, so we have 7, then 7 again with the low E. Right? Then we pick the B string with our middle finger. Right? And then first finger with the G. So we have 7, 7, B string, G. Right, so that would actually be worth just practicing on its own a few times, potentially. Cool. And then we have this little blue square, which is a bit trickier, where we have to play the high E on the 7th fret and the B string. So using our middle finger for the B string, third finger for the high E. We play those two, and then we do a pull-off from the 7th to the 0. Now what you're doing there is you're just playing that 7, and then you flick your finger and it'll make the high E string resonate, right? Just like that. So then you just do that, adding in the B string, and then you play the B string again with your middle finger, and then G with your first finger. Okay, so that first red square is 7, 7 with the low E, B string, G, then you play the B and the high E on the 7, pull off, and then B string, G. Right, so up to speed we have. Right, and that 7 pull off to, that's why it's in that blue square. That's quite tricky to go. I would isolate that and just do that a few times, get familiar with it. Cool. And then what I would do before moving on is I would incorporate that with the rest of that red square, right? So cool. And then I would go back to the very beginning and try play everything through on that first line and combine it all together. So right, you'll notice I actually use my first finger there, but you can use either your first or third will actually be fine for that. A good little section to practice would actually be from the 0 at the start of bar 4 to the end of that first line. That would be, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. You go through this picking pattern and then add in these notes. Cool. Anyway, moving on. So once you get that down, move on to the second line. And the start of it's pretty easy. We're just playing the low E and the high E together, again using the thumb and third finger. Then we play the open G with your first finger, like that. Pretty straightforward. Now this part gets a bit tricky, so we're going to play the 7 with our first finger and the B string, and then we play the 8, 8 and the B string together. Right, so 7, 8. And then what we do is we play that 7, and this is where it gets hard. We have to play the 7, let's play the 7, hammer on to the 8, pull off to the 7, and then slide to the 5 with our first finger. So we play 7, push on the 8, pull off to the 7, and slide down to the 5. So 7, 8, 7, 5. Right? And then when you combine that in the red square with that 7 and 8, we have... Right, so it's 7. Right? And if you're struggling to get that to ring, what you want to think about is you really have to push down quite hard on that hammer on, then you flick the string to pull back off and then slide down. Cool? Okay, so that bar on its own. Like that. Cool. Then once you get that, I would actually, combine that again with the beginning of bar 4. Just like that. And again, just focus on the parts you need to focus on. Okay, you probably will need to stick with this for a little bit. All right, now the next part. So then, after we've done that slide down to 5, we want to use our third finger to play the 7 again and the B string. And then we play the 5 with our first finger, slide down to 2, and then play the 5 with our pinky on the B string. So this is quite hard. So you play the 7 and open B string, 5 slide to 2, and then you catch that 5 with your pinky on the B string. Now, with the slide from the 5 to the 2, it's not like you're going 5, 2, and then 5 on the B. It's a very gradual thing. You want to think as if this 5 on the high E is gliding in pitch to that 5 on the B. It's a very gradual, smooth slide, not... Right? So that's something you'll probably have to practice on its own, right? 5, down to 2, and then catching that 5 with your pinky on the B string. Whoops. Cool. And then if you combine that with that 7 in front of it, so... Cool. Then you would combine that all together. Right? Now, moving on to the next bit. So we're playing it's like a little chord shape. So our pinky will already be on the 5 from the previous phrase that we played. But now we also want to put our third finger on the 5 of the G. Okay? And it's going to set us up for this next bit. And then we play the open A string with our thumb. And then we play the B string. That will be a 5 because our finger's already on it. Alright, so we play those two. Then play the 5 on the G. 5 on the B. Okay, so we have right, and then this part's pretty hard. You got to play 2 while keeping these 2 fingers on the 5s. You play the 2 with your first finger, and then pull off to the open E. Now this is often a struggle because it's quite a bit of a stretch, right? And then you play the 2 5s again, going down. So B string, G, right? So that's why that's in the little blue square, because you might need to practice just going 2, pull off to 0, 5, 5, 2, pull off to 0, 5, 5. So you have in that whole red square. Do that again. Right. Okay, so do the best you can with that. And again, probably going to have to focus on doing this a few times. Cool. Right, once you get that, then we move on to the next bit. Third line. So we're keeping our 2 fingers on those 5s, on the G and the B string like we were before. And we play the A string, G, the B, then the high E. Like that. Okay. Now, we have these chords. So we play all 4 of the A, the G, the B, and the high E. Okay, using our thumb and 3 fingers. And then, while keeping that there, we put our first finger on the 2 and play them again. And then first finger on the 3. Now this is one that you're going to have to practice on its own. Right, again, quite a bit of a stretch. And if you want to cheat, you can actually leave out those 5s and just go. Right, if you really just can't get that stretch, alright, you can just leave out the 5s and play the 0s, the 2 and the 3. So play the high E string and the A string, ignoring the 5s, but you know, try to do it the right way. And then if you put that together with that whole red square, so we have cool. Alright, next square. So we're keeping our fingers in that same chord position with the 3, the 5, and the 5 on the G and B, and we play thumb on the 3, first finger on the 5, B string, G, and then we do a pull off from the 3rd fret to the open E string on the high E, and then play the 5 and 5 on the B and G, right? And this is picked quite fast. Which doesn't mean you need to practice it fast. Let's practice it slow. Right, making sure you're using the right fingers. Right? And again, you might need to practice just going 3, pull off to 0, 5, 5, 3, pull off to 0, 5, 5. And then we take this chord shape and we play all 4 strings, right? The A, the G, the B, and the high E together. And then we move it all up 2 frets. So we get 5, 7, 7, 0, which you'll see in the tab, right? Right, and then we pick through those notes in the chord again. So we have 5, 7, 7, and then back down to the G, 7. And then this part, this is one that you're going to have to isolate. So you want to play the high E, and you can lift your fingers off the chord for this. You want to play the high E, hammer on to 5, pull off to 0. Then we play 7 on the B, pull off to 0. Then play the open B again and hammer on to 5. So 0, 5, pull off to 0, 7, pull off to 0, 0, hammer on to 5. Like that. Cool, and if I combine that with the notes in front of it, sound like that. So that part's probably one of the more trickier parts of this intro. So again, just be patient with it. Practice this a few times, and remember with pull-offs and hammer-ons, With hammer-ons, you really need to commit to pushing down. You can't push down slowly or the note will just die. And when you're doing pull-offs, you can kind of flick the string with your finger. Alright? Alright, this is how they play like this. AC/DC. Anyway, cool. So, moving on. Now we have some natural harmonics. Now, if you're not familiar with how to play these, basically what you want to do, and the natural harmonics are you'll see the 12s and the little sideways triangle thingies, whatever they're called, right, on the 12th fret. So what you want to do is just lightly push your finger right over the 12th fret, and you don't actually push down. You don't want to actually fret. You're just lightly touching the strings, and you'll get this kind of sound. Right, so that's what that indicates. So we play the open E string with our thumb, and then we put our finger over the 12th fret, and we play those three strings. Get that kind of sound, right? And then we just pick through the same pattern that we did at the beginning. Cool. So I would nearly work on that whole first section on the intro on its own for a while, and then you could look at the next part. So the next part, we're getting into some bar chords. So I've written here the bar chord shapes, and the first thing I would do is just get familiar with playing those through, and then I would add in the finger picking. So our first bar chord is an E minor bar chord built from the A string. There'll be a chord diagram in the description box you can download to go along with this. So you want to bar over the 7th fret, and then play this shape. That's our first chord shape. Then we move down to the 5th fret and play a D major bar chord. Right, now there's a few ways you can play this. You want to be barring on the 5th fret. You can use 3 fingers to play the 7s, right? Or you can just slam one finger down. That's what I like to do. And then we do that same shape but on the 3rd fret, which would turn it into a C major bar chord. And if you want to learn about bar chords, I have videos on that on my channel. And we go through that. So E minor, D, C. E minor, D, C. Right, and we do that, how many times is it? It's 3 times, okay? And then we can add in the finger picking. So we play this E minor shape, we play the open E, and then we have to pick through this chord. Like this. So the way we do it is we play our thumb on the open E, we use our thumb to play the 7, then our thumb to play the next 9, and then we go first finger to play the 9 on the G, and then we use our middle finger and 3rd finger to play the 7 and the 8 simultaneously. So we have thumb, 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 first finger, and then middle finger and 3rd finger. Like that. Cool? Alright, then we move to our D chord shape that we did before, the bar chord, and we play thumb on the 5. Then the next string we use our thumb again, and then we use our first 2 fingers to play those 2 7s on the G and the B. So, and then same thing on the 3rd fret. Alright, so we have so I would just practice looping that round a few times. Don't worry that it's only 3 times in the song. You can just loop it round and round heaps to practice it. It's always a good method. And then once you get that, we have a couple of variations on the 4th time. So on the 4th time, we play a G major bar chord on the E string, which would look like this bar chord shape if you've ever played it. So you want to bar over the 3rd fret, and then you're playing an E shape with these 3 fingers. Again, there'll be a diagram for this. And you want to pick the low E with your thumb. Then you want to skip over to the D, play that with your thumb. And then you play the G and the B with your first 2 fingers. Alright. And then you play what's called a B dominant 7 chord, which is similar to the major bar chord, but we're going to bar over the 2nd fret. And then we're going to use our 3rd finger to play the 4th fret on the D, and then our pinky to play the 4th fret on the B. Right, this would be a dominant 7 chord shape. And then we're going to use now the picking pattern. We're going to pick through it with our thumb on the 2nd fret of the A, and then thumb again for the D string. Then use our first 2 fingers to play the 2 and 4 on the G and B. Right, so we have this G major bar chord, then this B7. Right, you might need to just practice, don't worry about the picking first, just G major, B7, G major, B7, and then you can add in this. Like that. So that whole chord section should sound like this. So you have D minor, D, C, then again, D, C, D, C. Now this one we go G, B dominant 7, then we just go back to the intro picking pattern 2 times, I think. Then the verse begins. So that is the whole intro to Nothing Else Matters. Again, just be patient with it. Look at where all the different phrases are and just practice each part individually, then add it in with the part that you learnt before, then practice the next part, add it in. Okay, so you're just adding in chunks each time. Don't just try practice start to finish. Okay, that's always just going to lead to problems and you'll get frustrated and feel like you're getting nowhere. So hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you can now have an idea of how to go about tackling this intro. And if you have any requests for other songs that you would like me to go over, just let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.